Hello everyone, today we're going to report the strategic planning, thinking and doing together with my partner Wina Bantulay. Our topic is all about the strategic planning, thinking and doing. Strategic planning is a systematic method used by organizations to adapt to expected changes. A strategic plan provides guidance for your library detailing current strengths and assets, future goals and aspiration, action or implementation plan, and how you will evaluate progress. Strategic planning is important to libraries because it empowers your library to make the greatest impact possible by developing a mission, vision, goals, and objectives to guide your activities. Strategic thinking facilitates the conversion of a vision and mission into goals and action plans, it creating a better tomorrow for the information services organization. Strategic thinking involves a continuous process of making entrepreneurial, even risk-taking decisions systematically with the greatest possible knowledge of future consequences. Strategic thinking requires insight through synthesis as well as analysis, nonlinear as well as linear thinking, visual as well as verbal conceptualizing, implicit as well as implicit thinking, and the need to engage the heart as well as the head. Thinking strategically means thinking conceptually, imaginatively, systematically, and opportunistically with regard to the attainment of success in the future. Just put it simple, strategic thinking is about considering your situation differently through different lenses and asking questions like lots of questions. There are three primary question guides for future strategic thinking exercise. First, we have what seems to be happening. In this question, it answering the questions required addressing, meaning perceiving how one builds the relevant knowledge base. Second, what are possibilities are presented. This requires addressing, meaning understanding how one determines the significance or use of the knowledge base. And lastly, what is the organization going to do about it? This requires reasoning how to determine the significance or use of the knowledge base. Planning the outcomes. Strategic planning must start with the customer. The focus is primary in all types of libraries and information centers today. Just as with strategic thinking, there are several questions must be addressed. Like, who are we? In this question, it requires reaffirming or creating the organization's vision and mission. Where are we now? In this question, it requires a SWOT analysis which includes both an internal examination and external view of trends and threats. Where do we want to be? In this question, it requires the visioning aspect and then preliminary goal and objective setting. How do we get there? In this question, it requires the development of specific action, financial, and communication plans. How are we doing? In this question, it requires periodic review of the plan, noting successes and shortcomings, our preparation of our revitalized plan. Strategic planning required developing a vision for the organization's information services, identifying a mission within that context, setting realistic goals, establishing attainable objectives, and developing activities that can be carried out as policies and procedures that accomplish these goals and objectives. In its simplest definition, it is a process of translating decision into policies and policies into action so that a successful transition can take place in moving from the current scenario to one envisioning the future. Systematic plan change is the most effective way to implement new services and preserve important existing ones, while eliminating those programs and services whose usefulness has passed. This scenario requires an organizational arrangement that makes systematic, orderly change possible and attainable within a realistic time frame. Flexibility in development, implementation, and time constraints presents the greatest challenges to a strategic planning effort. Change as the speed of the thought is the metaphor of the day, and this requires a flexible process, perhaps even preferred featuring. In order to implement a successful strategic planning process, there are two criteria are necessary. First, the entire organization should be informed of the process and buy into its success, with all participants being kept informed of its progresses. Second, the administration of the larger organization, academic institution, town official, school district, or company CEOs should be aware of decisions, commitments, and efforts as a result of the planning activities. One primary benefit of strategic planning is that it serves as necessary self-analysis or self-study that allows the organization to identify its strengths and weaknesses and then develop priorities within the framework of its physical and financial capabilities. Being strategic, then, means having a clear understanding of the organization's objectives, while at the same time being aware of the organization's resources and incorporating both into being consciously responsive to a dynamic external environment. The process is disciplined in that it calls for a certain order and pattern to keep it focused and productive. The self-examinations begins with identifying the belief, values, and ethos that guide the libraries or information center services goal. The self-examination are belief, values, and ethos. Commitment of individual working in the organization to develop organizational strategies is vital and is evident in common values and shared belief or ideologies that are deemed good and desirable and that can act as guidelines for action and implementation of decisions. Self-examinations allow the Library of Information Center to formulate action that address strengths and weaknesses while taking advantage of opportunities that promote the vision of what it would like to be, envisioned in a mission statement, with what it can afford to be, regulated by the organization physical and financial capabilities. Development of a strategic plan. The planning committee. There are steps that follow the committee. First, we have the step 1, identify assumptions, audit values. Step 2, environmental scanning. It identify and review existing services and studies, identify opportunities and threats, identify related organizations and possible competitors or collaborators and their plan, and lastly, identify relevant models and developments. There are steps that align in planning, known as the step 3, create vision statement. Step 4, formulate mission statement. Step 5, strategic modeling. It includes scenario generation, performance audit, identify strengths and weaknesses, and develop goals and objectives. BLC and task force at the Bill of Action Plan, identify budget or resources requirements, adjust policies and procedures, and step 8 as the implementation. We have the step that follow the BLC, which is the evaluation. The Library's Strategic Planning Committee is charged with promoting the library's mission and core values as the primary guides in library planning, decision-making, and resource allocation. The LSPC advises and supports the Dean's development of the library's strategic plan and strategic initiatives. The committee will establish the library's planning process, periodically review and prioritize the existing strategic plan and initiatives, and consider new strategic initiatives that may be proposed by librarians, staff, or other stakeholders. Before beginning a strategic planning process, an organization must seriously address and adequately answer several basic questions. Why it is necessary to plan strategically, and why at this particular point in the organization's life? Who should be involved, and how involved should they be? How does strategic thinking lead to strategic planning for this organization, and what needs to be known beforehand? After those initial questions have been answered to the satisfaction of members of the organization, the important first step in strategic plan process is the identification of a coordinating team or task force with the responsibility for the major planning phases. In addition, other work teams and task force are likely to be involved as appropriate at various times and levels in the process. The SWOT analysis evaluates the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats involved in a project or in a business venture. Our strength is our curiosity and need to learn. Any new technology, trend, or cultural shift, we are on it finding out how it works, what it is, what the advantages are, and sharing what we have learned. Strength of library is resilience, capability, and leadership that is increasingly evident on a global and national platform. For instance, taking lead on excellent provision of space, open access, and scholarly communications agenda. Weaknesses are our modesty. We are so happy to provide the best service imaginable but rarely expect credit or recognition. These continue to include parallel thinking and a lack of cooperation between libraries of academic institutions. Issues such as collaborative storage come to mind in a book ordering, lack of visibility, or voice outside our own profession. Opportunities in libraries are the growth and need for library professionals in so many different sectors. Where everything is constant flux, anything is possible, and we can fill so many vacuums. Chance to reinvigorate professional body, chance to be advocate for digital privacy, chance to champion digital literacy, more intersectoral collaborations, chance to be more entrepreneurial and self-reliant, and better outreach librarians as educators. Threats are very evident in sectors that are experiencing financial difficulty, mostly in the public sector, but some academic institutions also. Unfortunately, libraries usually take the biggest hit when economic cuts have to be made, and in particular, it's the staff and services that suffer rather than infrastructure. Public perception is still that we only stamp books and are obsolete as a result of Google. But as Neil Gaiman says, Google can find you 100,000 answers, but a librarian gets you the correct one. Valuable skills and innovation, particularly technical skills, are at risk of being host to immigration or other sectors due to restriction on hiring, as both public libraries and the entire higher education sector continue to experience squeezed budget, staffing levels are reduced or stagnate, and innovation is at risk of being curtailed. As I tie this all, libraries have used largely untapped potential to know more about their users and to be recognized expert in how they read, learn, collaborate, and communicate. Instead, we largely focus on pushing services out to our resources, training, support, but we tend not to get enough feedback. Every intersection with our users must be a two-way transaction. If we don't do this, we'll run out of fuel. This is impoverishing us and it's a dead end. Libraries already are sitting on an abundance of data on their users which we to put to use, to share it, to interpret it, to connect it to other data sets. A lot of our quantitative data is rarely shared, and our qualitative data, like the front desk staff years of experience about what our users love or hate about our services, is too often tacit knowledge never formally collected or shared. Valuable intelligence can sit on a librarian's PC and, if disseminated at all, might just be a bullet point in an internal report. We need to be systematic in collecting and interpreting information about how our users work. But we have a professional responsibility to do this ethically and transparently. This must be intersect to our work at all levels, not a side project we dip into at peak times. The PES analysis. PES is an assessment measure to determine the political, economic, social, and technological trends in the environment. In planning, librarians have to study the environment and make some forecasting. In order to prepare for 3 to 5 years in the development of the library, we conduct PES analysis. The political, economic, social, and technological trends that is happening now shall provide us basis of planning for the future and needs to be done. That's why research is one of the most important way to know if we are still relevant in serving our clients. Another is to conduct survey to know whether our library users are satisfied with the services and resources provided by the college libraries, especially during pandemic. The example of PES analysis are the LP technique and benchmarking technique. The LP technique is a kind of survey to solicit opinions about technological trends. Benchmarking is a process that searches for the best practice, assuming that an organization can be improved by analyzing and copying other successful organizations. Example of benchmarking is conducting library tours. When librarians or library science students will visit other advanced or well-developed libraries, benchmarking is like spotting what are the practice of other librarians that are considered to be the best for improving performance. We do not necessarily copy them, but we try to innovate from what they have already done. The several factors must be considered in initial strategic planning steps. In initial strategic planning exercise, just as with planning of any magnitude, should be viewed as only that the initial step in a continuous process. No plan, no matter how well formulated, can or will implement itself. Success in the process requires direction and commitment to succeed. Therefore, the final step in the cycle is one of monitoring, the evaluating, and adjusting that is essential to the process. Following through with clearly developed implementation step, measuring progress towards the goals, and incorporating feedback area, a continuation of the process of planning. The greatest cause for failure of the process lies in poor execution of the plan, a lack of follow-through accompanied by a lack commitment to see that it is accomplished and that adjustments are made so that it can be accomplished. In order for the process to proceed smoothly at the operational level, there should be a common understanding of the meanings of terms used in the strategic planning process. It is timeless and it provides clear decision-making criteria. Simple stated, it should be an inspiring statement of the future which can become the guide for action and behavior towards the accomplishment of a mission. Values and culture. Values are the organization essential and enduring tenets, a small set of general guiding principles that approve enduring guidelines for human conduct. Values are usually stated in terms of respect for other people, their honesty and integrity, a commitment to the social responsibilities and diversity in the organization workforce, engagement in activities with commitment to innovation, collaborational excellence in services, and social responsibility. The use of adjectives as a generic term variously referring to philosophy, vision, mission, purpose, goals, guiding principles, strategies, target, codes, policies, activities, and deadlines. Hierarchical process with integral relationship can be developed among components after the vision has been articulated, with the mission preceding goals, which precede objectives, which precede activities and strategies, from which policies and procedures emanate, and then evaluation is possible. Each of these components builds on the previous one. Mission. Mission is a short, succinct statement focusing on the purpose of the organization, its reason for existence, and what it hopes to accomplish. The most important strategic step an organization can take, the mission statement should answer three primary questions: who, the customer, what, the services, and how is your activities. All focused by the previously answered question of why the vision. It demonstrates the value the organization can make in the lives, personal and professional, of those it serves. All types of libraries and information centers are typically created with a mission of the service. The components of a mission statement are what, who, and how. Goal, themes, and direction. In formulating goals, planners are required to delve one step deeply by resolving the overlap between the needs of the users and a desire to provide appropriate service with the physical and financial capabilities of the library or information center. Goals provide direction and are intended to produce effectiveness. They also provide a framework for future planning and help motivate individuals and groups in the work environment. Goals must be flexible and are subject to constant modification to reflect changing expectation and focus. Because goals are not specific enough to be termed operational. However, lower-level objectives and activities are required to quantify goals, but goals are the basis for development and measure against which the success or failure of the plan can be determined. Goals are the action-oriented with the action following through in the form of objective that specify means of achieving the goals. It must be recognized that sometimes there are two types of goals functioning in an organization: the stated goals and real goals. Stated goals and real goals may be identical. Sometimes they are different. If they are real goals, they will have an impact on the behavior of people. The differences between stated goals and real goals are subtle and often financially driven. Objectives, initiative, pathways, and strategies. Objectives is the most generic term used to set a pattern for the structure of the activities. Those activities-oriented objectives provide direction as well as indicative towards achievement. Objectives can be conservative or expansive, but always shall be stated in terms and conditions that stretch the enterprise. They are specific objectives to achieve goals that specify activities to be accomplished in order to achieve the vision. In setting objectives, many things must be taken into account: the strengths of the library, the limitation of the organization, and how much can be accomplished with the financial and material resources available, and the mission of the larger institution of which the library or information center is part. The library or information center must be able to prove the both itself and to the funding authority that the objectives are suitable, sustainable, and measurable. The primary elements involved in an objectives formulation includes the clients, who they are and how they are not, with the potential of converting those who are not. The services. What new services are needed, which existing one shall be retained and which shall be deleted. Personal resources. What professional and support skills are needed to provide identified services. Technological resources. What can be assessed when and where many organizations are now instituting a separate strategic plan for technological development. Financial resources. What and where are and how to maintain them. Community responsibilities. The library's obligation as a social institution. A maximum degree of compatibility shall exist between the identified goals and specific objectives to achieve them if the organization is to be successful in its mission. It is also important to remember that many forces influence the process of planning and achieving goals. Therefore, the process must be viewed from a number of perspectives. The three primary perspectives are environmental. These are considering constraints imposed on the organization by society engagement in general. Organizational. It considering the organization as an open system. And lastly, the individual. It considering the personal goals of the individuals working in the organization. Activities, tasks, and initiative. Activities, tasks, and initiative are a way of achieving the objectives. They are usually short-term, repetitive, measurable, and numerous at the operational level. They require effective policies and procedures to facilitate their achievement. Activities guide the everyday functioning of the organization and in that sense are programmatic and narrow. Evaluation, accountability in action. Just developing a strategic plan in paper is not enough, and therefore evaluation is vital to any strategic effort. The measurement and evaluation plans helps to ensure that the expected outcomes are reasonable and measurable. In addition, such evaluation tends to sharpen the organization's thinking about the process. They relate to four basic actions: The first action are applying the strategies in a personal form by identifying specific performance measure and developing implementation strategies with a view toward ensuring that all understand the goals and objectives that guide performance measures. Second is the ensuring that all the various works units with the organization are linked both tactically and philosophically to achieving the goals and objectives as synergy for the work to be accomplished. Third, communication is important to ensure total understanding of the strategies and how they impact the organization's mission. Link the plan to the budgeting process, thereby ensuring a continuing initiative. This evaluation component requires a focused design that provides for measuring program success and recommending program improvement when necessary. Factors such as success, efficiency, effectiveness, benefits, and cost all play a role in this effort. Strategic planning is the most popular approach in management of today's knowledge-based organizations. It helps define the organization's reason for being and mission, because the planning process can be a cost proposition, improper selection, or faulty specification of objectives wastes planning time and money, resulting in infrastructure and disenchantment, rendering the entire planning actively futile. Every information services organization needs to spell out its own goals and objectives instead of relying on those of other organizations, because those components determine the policies, procedures, and organizational structures of the library or information center. Planning represents the beginning of a process upon which other principles are based. That all be all. Thank you.